My opponent is a right-wing extremist, fixated on Republican politics, not fighting crime. She's never taken on gangs. She's never even prosecuted a case. She is dangerously unqualified.
Dang.
I am Fani Willis. Make Fulton County safer, not more dangerous.
Courtney Kramer is actually the attorney who is running against Fani Willis. And the interesting thing she put out on X earlier today, yesterday, excuse me. It looks like she's receiving some backlash from Fani Willis for some of the statements she's made. We went over and reviewed a letter that Courtney Kramer put out. It looked like in support of her campaign and saying, hey, y'all, if I get elected, if you elect me as DA, I am ending this YSL trial. And of course, we were loving it over here. People were talking about it all over the internet and X. And it looks like Fani Willis finally snapped back, or clapped back, I should say, at Courtney Kramer, who's opposing her in this race for the DA. So let's see what Courtney had to say about that. She says, my opponent put out an ad about me claiming that I am dangerously unqualified and only in it for the politics. Well, I mean, politics are politics. Ironic, given that Fani campaigned on getting Trump and has consistently avoided subpoenas and still has thousands of untested R-word kits on her hands. Where is the injustice, or where's the justice for victims, for women? Why is Fulton still so unsafe? We have our taxpayer dollars gone. Or I'm sorry, where have our taxpayer dollars gone? Why is she above the law? Fulton needs a change and a choice. Hashtag fire Fani, hashtag make Fulton safe. Now, I'm going to play this ad for y'all and y'all tell me what you think.
My opponent is a right-wing extremist, fixated on
Hold on, let me run this back and I'll turn it up for you.
My opponent is a right-wing extremist, fixated on Republican politics, not fighting crime. She's never taken on gangs. She's never even prosecuted a case. She is dangerously unqualified.
Dang.
I am Fani Willis. Make Fulton County safer, not more dangerous. My opponent is a right-wing extremist.
She says she never even, oh my goodness. Oh, shout out to Courtney Kramer. She was not happy about that. I'm gonna be real. I did vote for Courtney Kramer this past. I went right on did I go on the 15th or the 16th? I can't remember. But as soon as the polls opened, I was right there ready to go. So Fulton County, y'all make sure you get out there and vote. The tough thing is a lot of us right now with what's going on in Fulton County is similar to what's happening in the presidential race. I don't think most people are happy or that happy or excited with either candidate. They just want to make sure one candidate's not there over the other candidate. So, I mean, that's kind of seems where the way we're going in this country. But y'all let me know what you think about that from Courtney Kramer. And if it was fair on Fani Willis's part. I mean, she did have some good points there. Courtney is really inexperienced when it comes to her resume versus Fani's. But should that matter? And I mean, you got to start somewhere. Should Courtney Kramer be allowed to start with the DA's office? We'll have to wait and see. And this was published today, actually, by Fox 5 News. It says the Fulton County DA, Fani Willis, faces rare Republican challenger in the 2024 election. So let's look at it. Fulton County District Attorney Fani Willis, the Democratic Georgia prosecutor who brought charges against future President Donald Trump over efforts to overturn the 2020 presidential election, faces a rare Republican challenger in her bid for re-election in the state's most populous county. Courtney Kramer, a lawyer who interned in the White House counsel's office under Trump, said she wants to bring transparency and accountability to the office. But Willis, who easily fended off a challenge from the left in May's Democratic Party, told the Associated Press she's confident she'll win. I kind of agree with her, but we'll see. She's going to lose, and she's going to lose badly, Willis said of Kramer. Willis said voters should give her 4 more years because of her record in office. Well, I don't know what record we're talking about. We'll have to wait and see, including a pre-indictment diversion program she started and a program in schools to encourage students to choose alternatives to gangs and crime. as well as as reductions in homicides and the backlog of unindicted cases. A lot of you know, because of COVID, we here in Fulton County, we had so many backlog cases. And I think Courtney Kramer mentioned that obviously in her tweet as well. One of those are the sexual assault kits that haven't been processed. I mean, there's thousands of those that haven't been processed, and the victims are just sitting there waiting for Fulton County to get through all of this because of everything that happened with COVID. I mean, courts were shut down. There was absolutely nothing going on. And even when I served on grand jury a couple of years ago, we went through hundreds and hundreds of indictments every single day. And that's because of all the backlog cases they have. So this really is a real problem and something that they're still dealing with even several years after the initial outbreak. Fulton County is home to about 11% of the state's electorate, is a Democratic stronghold where no Republican has ever run for district attorney since 2000. Willis has raised $2.1 million compared to Kramer's $278,000. Oh, man. And is heavily favored to win. Oh, my goodness. And they're saying Fani Willis is favored to win. Kramer, 31, who grew up in Fulton County and knows the political landscape, has visited Trump's Mar-a-Lago estate, posted photos of herself with a who's who of Make America Great Again personalities on Instagram, and claims many of the former president's constituents, staunchest allies in Georgia are as friends. But she says that she shouldn't stop anyone, even Democrats, from voting for her. Her mantra for the campaign has been, it's not about right versus left. It's about right versus wrong. Y'all rock with that? Oh, and that's Fani Willis's victory speech, but we're not going to go through that. Willis, 53, became district attorney in January of 2021 and shot to national prominence a month later when she announced that she was investigating whether Trump and others broke any laws while trying to overturn his narrow 2020 presidential election loss in the state to Democrat Joe Biden. And y'all remember we talked about that in the previous video, some of the things that went down there, and I'm just gonna leave it at that. We'll keep it moving. She obtained a sprawling racketeering indictment against Trump and 18 others in August of last year. She worked in the office she now leads for 17 years under her predecessor, Paul Howard, and then worked as a magistrate judge and as a defense attorney. She defeated Howard in a bitter Democratic primary fight in 2020. She'd like to serve 3 terms as district attorney and then start teaching at her undergraduate alma mater, Howard University in Washington, she told the Associated Press. She started a domestic violence prosecution unit and said if she's elected for a second term, she plans to focus on creating more county resources for victims of those crimes. The Trump case has won her fans among the Democrats across the country, while also making her a target of the former president and his allies. She's been criticized by friends and foes alike for a romantic relationship with Nathan Wade. Oh, man. And we know what happened there, but we won't get into it today. The special prosecutor she hired to lead this case, not only did she hire him to lead this case, but she paid him an exorbitant amount of money, which she then benefited from, but we won't go into that. The presiding judge chided her for a tremendous lapse in judgment, a pretrial appeal of the judge's ruling, allowing her to continue the prosecution, has effectively stalled it. And that has a large part to do in the work that Ashley Merchant's been putting in on this case as well. Frustrating some Democrats who had hoped the case against the Republican nominee for president would go to trial before the general election. Now it's looking like they're not going to be able to do anything until well after the election. It was supposed to happen November, I think, towards the end of next month, but we'll see. That'll probably get stalled at some point too. Kramer said when she entered the district attorney's race in March that the Trump indictment prompted her to run. accusing Willis of pursuing the case for personal political gain. I can definitely see that. While some have speculated that Kramer is running to dismiss that case, she said she would recuse herself if elected because she served in the Trump White House and has also worked with two of the others indicted, lawyer Ray Smith and former state GOP chair David Schaefer. Some progressive Democrats and defense attorneys at Willis's tough on crime approach, saying she overuses gang and racketeering laws, unnecessarily complicating cases to get higher penalties. A high profile example is the prosecution of rapper Young Thug and others. The prosecution's case has dragged on for nearly a year, with scores of witnesses left to call, and the judge recently suggesting that the prosecution was engaging in really poor lawyering. She also called them sloppy, which we had never seen before. Kramer said she would dismiss the case, arguing it has been poorly managed and a waste of resources. We read this letter here in the previous video. If y'all want to go check that out, you can find that on our YouTube channel. Willis, known for defiance in the face of threats and fiery responses to detractors, declined to discuss specific cases but dismissed Kramer's criticism, calling her opponent ignorant and wholly unqualified. She's never tried a case at all. She's never practiced criminal law. Dang. That's tough. All she is a right-wing politician trying to carry right-wing politics. Kramer has been extremely active in the Republican political organizations. She became a lawyer in December of 2020 and helped with an election challenge filed by Trump. She said her law practice in the past few years has focused on civil litigation. Acknowledging her lack of experience in prosecution or management, she said she has good decision-making and leadership skills. She said she would be transparent about the office's finances, which Fani Willis has not at all. And would work to move cases along quickly. Asked several times about specific policies or goals, she said she'd have to wait until she gets into office to make those decisions. And yeah, that's where she kind of loses a lot of people. That's where she kind of loses them. If you don't have any specific things you want to implement and you have a lack of experience, it's going to be tough to win over voters. Like, you have to have some very clear, very direct and specific goals, because we already know what Fani's going to do, and she's already done some of the work. With some of the things she has done and implemented, there are benefits to, but how she's been running some of these bigger cases and how she's been kind of misusing her power in certain ways has been tough for a lot of us to watch. So I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. She said she would have to wait until she gets into office to make those decisions. Kramer criticized Willis, as many others have, for crowded conditions at the main Fulton County jail, saying people have languished there while their cases go unindicted, and also said violent crime has risen on Willis's watch. But she doesn't want to talk about that. Not to even mention what's going on with Rice Street and them not having the money to pay the security team to stay in Rice Street, which is a part of her job. But since Willis took office, violent crimes have mostly dropped in the biggest city in her jurisdiction. There were 157 killings in Atlanta in 2020 and 135 last year. That's 135 too many. And this year's numbers are 13% lower than a year ago. According to police data, robberies and aggravated assaults have also dropped, and sexual assaults have been declining steadily, but are up this year. Okay. Robberies and aggravated assaults have also dropped, and rapes have been declining steadily, but are up this year. So they went down and then they went back up. Oh my God. Fulton County's main jail remains plagued with problems, but overcrowding in the court system has improved. 3 days before Trump was indicted, there were 3,571 people in county custody, and 1,683, or 47%, had not been indicted. On Friday, there were 2,584 people in custody, with 638 or 25% unindicted. I mean, that's still, those numbers still aren't good. Anyway, that's a little bit about what's going on here in Fulton County.